Hello, welcome in. This is Marcus Davis with a PAVEDOT Positive Podcast. This is our leadership series, and it's on coaching. And a coach can be a mentor, a teacher, a trainer, an educator, a tutor, a drill instructor. I'm sitting here with a teacher, mentor, motivator, Samantha. If you would, just introduce yourself.
I'm Samantha Ezell. I grew up in Arizona. I traveled a little bit of everywhere in the coaching community, but mostly from Arizona.
Mostly from Arizona, and we are here in Wilmington, North Carolina. So it's a process to get in here, right? You didn't just pick it. So if you could give us a little detail on how you go from Arizona to Wilmington.
You know, I was looking for a little bit of change of pace, and I wanted to be near the beach, to be very honest with you, and find a little bit of peace and a nice climate and reasonable cost of living, and so we ended up in Wilmington.
So it was one of those things where you just had a map and you just said, I'm going to go here.
Yep.
It's on the coast, and I read good reviews.
Yeah, I did some research. I mean, I found a church that I liked here. I found a swim team that was good for my daughter. That was important to me to have her be on a good swim team, or at least a swim team that was offered. And again, it was more about the climate, the weather, the beach, and finding a place that was peaceful. I thought it was a welcoming community when I visited, and folks were friendly, and it was an environment that I felt like we would do really well in.
And you said that and you said daughter. So can you tell us a little about your daughter?
Yeah, my daughter, I have a daughter and a son. My son's still in Arizona, but my daughter Tegan is 10.
10.
And
that's the one I know. That's why I said
you know Tegan. She was she was in the MLK League this winter. And,
a champion.
Did really well.
A champion.
She did.
And we give a little backstory on that too. My son played in that league, and we played in the championship game, and it was a nail biter.
Yeah, he almost beat us all by himself that night.
Oh, well, it's a team game. Hey, look, it's a team game because you got to take that win and that loss as a team, and it was good, and that's what I like about what I do at the Martin Luther King Center. Those programs and those kids getting up and down for a championship game, and it was real intense.
It was a lot of fun. It was really a great environment for those guys.
Yeah, and I appreciate you signing her up.
Yeah,
that was big. And how about your son?
My son is 6, and he's in kindergarten, and he comes and visits on breaks. And
is he going to be a little ball player?
I tell you what, that kid is going to play something. He is in everything, from hockey to soccer to baseball to basketball. I mean, anything, any sport, he'll watch it, he'll play it. So he's definitely even more so involved in sports than my daughter is.
Yeah, and it's one of those with kids, and working with them, you always see who they're going to be, like potential. You don't want to put cast it on them, but you can kind of, you know.
Yeah, he's going to play something somewhere, somehow. If he has anything to say about it, he'll be doing it. So.
When did you first get into leadership? In your role as being a leader or coach?
Oh, goodness. Well, I always I didn't feel like a leader, I don't think necessarily as a teenager, but I think I probably was a leader by modeling. I was actually fairly introverted, but I always did the best I could do in the classroom. I played 3 sports in high school. I was an athletic trainer in high school. That led to a college scholarship and for basketball. And so I think, even now there are some folks in my little small community of Yuma, Arizona that probably thought I was on a leadership path, but it wasn't necessarily by design. I decided in college after playing basketball that I wanted to coach. I mean, I kind of had been toying with the idea, but I had an assistant coach in college that really made an impact on my life as a person and a basketball player as well. And I thought, if I could touch one young person's life the way that she touched mine, then it would be worth coaching. So I started coaching actually college basketball when I was 19. So I played ball for 2 years, and then I would go to college in the morning and do my classes. In the afternoon, I'd go to the community college up the road, South Mountain Community College, and I'd coach young people, some of whom were older than I was at the time.
But that inspiration your coach gave you is contagious, and that's what you want to do. You want to pass it on and pass on knowledge. And I felt that connection to what we were doing here with this podcast that we started about being positive and then also inspiring. Could you tell us a little about the coach that inspired you?
I played on an extremely competitive basketball team. When I was recruited as a senior, they were national champions. Mm-hmm. So my freshman year, we were defending national champs, and we finished 3rd in the country. My freshman year, we finished 7th in the country. My sophomore year, but I went from being a star, so to speak.
What position?
I was a guard. I was a 3 guard, so I was a shooting guard. But I played, really significant minutes in high school to sitting on the bench in college because I played with some phenomenal athletes. Some of that, went on to play in the WNBA. My college roommate went on and played in the WNBA and coached in the WNBA. So it was a really competitive program. So I didn't get as much playing time. The women were recruited from all over the country. There were 2 Arizona girls on the entire team, one of which I was. And so, I think it was a struggle for me to work really hard every day, do what I was supposed to do in the classroom, in quotes, supposed to do, but succeed in the classroom. I had extremely good behavior off the court.
Because college is fun.
It was fun, but it probably wasn't as fun for me as it was for a lot of others because I truly felt like every action that I took needed to be towards the success of playing basketball. And so I really steered clear of I steered clear of a lot of the things that would maybe deter that success. So this coach knew that about me, and she knew I was a good person and really working and trying to do my best. And she saw my struggle with not getting the playing time to coincide with that. But I think she just continued to tell me to look at the end game. Get your degree, get on to the next level of playing, and just do everything that you can do, and that your hard work is appreciated every day, and it's not being overlooked.
Oh man, that is a big point. The part of doing all the right things, quote unquote. You have teammates who in the club every night, not in the playbook, and then you're working hard. And then when you go to college and it's a system, the system is the coaches and their assistants, they spend all year training. I mean, not training, but recruiting.
Yep.
And they got their guys they believe in. And no matter how hard you're working, they're going to keep giving those guys that opportunity. And I used to call it, and I still do call it politics. And I feel like, not being political like the state or all that, but it's the system of politics of hey, man, I have a family to feed. These are guys I'm believing in. And if it do go down, this is who I'm believing in. And that part, as a player, I didn't really understand either. But then you got to have a good coaching staff. They have to notice those players like you. Coach took you under their wing. That was great.
Yeah, she did a great job. She was absolutely outstanding.
Yeah. Well, shout out to that coach.
Yeah, Denise Brooks.
Yeah, I was going to get to that too. I don't know if you want to say her name. If it was one of those.
Yeah.
Coach Denise Brooks. That is very big. So you figured out you wanted to be coach. What was your first coaching opportunity? To be a lead.
So to be a lead coach. I mean, I was an assistant coach for 9 years, and I really coached at all levels. I started out, like I said, going to class in the morning. So I'd go to Arizona State University in the morning, go to school, and then in the afternoons I'd go to South Mountain Community College and coach. And I did that until I graduated. And the head coach I worked for at the time basically said, "You are not coming back next year. You will find a 4-year job. That's what you want to do. So I'm not hiring you back next year."
After 9 years?
No, this was after. So this is 3 years at South Mountain Community College as an assistant while I was finishing my degree, my undergraduate degree.
Right.
But once she knew I was graduating, she said, "You're done. You're out of here because you need to go. You need to go to the 4-year level. You need to move on. You need to go where you want to go and pursue your dreams," which was, scary because that's pretty comfortable where I was. But I did, and I ended up as an assistant coach at the 4-year level for another 6 years at both the Division II and the Division I level at the NCAA. So
what schools?
All across the country.
Okay.
So I was at Wheeling Jesuit University, Shepherd University, Marshall University, and Bloomsburg University, all as assistant coaches. So.
Awesome.
Then I had the opportunity to become a head coach and ended up at Western New Mexico University for 4 years as head women's basketball coach of an NCAA Division II school, and then really wanted to get back home closer to my folks. My brother was starting a family, had young kids, wanted to be closer to them, and I wanted to start my own family, so I ended up back in Phoenix, which is kind of where I started at the community college level, to where I could somewhat have a little bit of a life and coach as well. And was the women's basketball coach at Phoenix College for 8 years prior to becoming the athletic director there.
Great, because you and that's the other point too. When you said have a life too, because coaches make such a big sacrifice to develop. Because developing players, you have to be consistent with your time. I feel that's the way to get the player to run through the brick wall.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You have to consistently be there, and you have so many other duties that you have to do. And I know we spoke a little bit about it. How much time away from family, and that can be a really toll on everything. You want to talk a little bit about the coaching process? What all does it come with being a college coach?
Well, when I was at Western New Mexico University as the head women's basketball coach, without exaggeration, I spent more nights in a hotel room than I did in my house, in my own bed, because I was either scouting or recruiting, but I was gone all the time. And so that's the commitment that college coaches make. I mean, they're not home a lot, you travel. By nature of the profession, coaching changes are made, so you go where the next job is. So there's not a lot of consistency always at the college level if you want to grow, if you want to develop, and if you want to move up. So, and if you want to have a good program, you got to be out every night. I mean, you're looking at players, the NCAA, they start recruiting them when they're, little bitty still.
Yeah.
So,
And then now you got the social media, and that's
absolutely. Yeah, and that's a whole nother aspect. I mean, you're on the phone, you're calling kids, you're trying to tell them how great your institution is and and then you're planning visits and you're going in homes and you're talking to parents and then you're going to watch games. I mean, it's pretty time intensive if you do it at a successful level.
yeah, a successful level. And a lot of that stuff too, it comes down to having a good team or staff.
Staff, for
You,
sure.
you
Yeah,
you have to have people that you believe in too. So
no question.
and then the better program comes down to money, right? Correct. I'm just me
Yeah, it
asking.
comes down to money and obviously prior success. I mean, but absolutely, the more resources you have, the more successful you're going to be.
Yeah.
And, staff loyalty is really important, as it is, when you're a young player, your coaches always want you to be loyal to the program and the team. And that doesn't change in coaching. I mean, you have staff that you expect to have their loyalty be with the program and the team as well.
Yeah, loyalty. That's a good one. That's a
Yeah.
good one. That is a big one too. Because even at that college level, I'm always just amazed of how little time coaches get. Some gets little time. Say you get into a big program where winning now is what it's supposed to, and it's having all this turnover, and it takes time to develop your players that you recruited, that you put all this time in. So how was that with the contract process?
It really depends on the school and it depends on the system. At the community college level, you can get in a system where it's really pretty difficult to get fired. Because it's not all about winning at a lot of the community colleges. It's more about completing degrees and focusing on young people and developing them as holistic human beings, not just somebody that's going to win ball games for you. So,
But shouldn't it be like that at every level? What you think?
well, it should be, but that's not what our society is driven by, right?
Exactly, and
So
that's
it is a lot about the money at the higher level and about the resources that you have to recruit and to bring kids in, and what those resources look like when the students come in. I mean, they're looking, how fancy is your locker room compared to the other locker room? How much money am I going to get? How much scholarship? I mean, even at the community college level, students want a full ride. And that's not always possible. You might have to package some things to get them to be able to come and play for you. But it's all about the money, and it's all about being able to say, I have a full ride. So it does have an impact on programs at every level, really.
yeah, it does. It does. It does. So even if that is an obstacle, how do you as a coach stay locked into to just worry in the moment? Because you have to when you're doing a season or any sport or whatever, you have to have goals. So you're
Sure.
setting team goals, and all these other factors. What are methods that you use with your college team?
For me, it was always more about basketball, but that's because it was the kind of player I was. So the teams I coached weren't always the best teams, quote unquote, in terms of competitiveness. I mean, I only had the opportunity in 18 years of coaching to go to one national tournament as a coach. Because it was my priority, especially as a head coach, to develop young people holistically. So I always told them that their family came first, that their academics came next, and then basketball. And for me, that was developing them. It explained that there are things that are important in life other than just the wins and losses on the court, which I think, at certain levels, that's what it is. It's all about the wins and losses. And you go to school so that you can be eligible to play, which is exactly the opposite of what I preached. You're not going to go to the WNBA when you're coaching women. And even men, there have been men in multiple levels of college basketball at many institutions that I've been at that all think they're going to play in the NBA. And it's simply not the case. There's just not that opportunity. So the priority should always be getting that education, Giving back to the community was always really important. Doing community service, reaching out to young people, holding camps, going to read in classrooms, setting an example for young people more than just on the court or on the playing surface.
I played back in 2009 at Catawba College, and I played football. Things that I believe in, I learned from playing that game of football. And then one of the biggest adjustments I'm making now is finding that other niche, that other thing that brings out the same passion that football did. So in doing that too, I also now in my role that I have now of implementing programs and having that purpose put into this is just one part of your life. Like even you have to be able to get locked in and be successful at every task you do. So this is one of them. So you do teach them how to practice and train and check off lists on your goal sheet, but also you do have to understand that you're not going to do it forever.
Right.
And you do have to have that other thing. And that's why going into college, I would tell any like a young listener that's listening, that ever listen or hear me speak, is be open to do more things, those extracurricular activities. You are actually going to find that niche. And don't be so I'm only a football player or a basketball player that you're not even paying attention to the science class that you're probably really good at. It's probably something that brings you joy too. So I feel that message needs to start as young as possible.
Yeah, every athlete at every level is one injury away from never playing again. And that's truly what it comes down to. Whether you're the professional level or the college level or even the high school level, you're one injury away from never being able to play again. You don't anticipate that. You don't plan for that when you're thinking, oh, I just want to play forever.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to broaden that spectrum so that you are prepared if that does happen.
You have some players who are timid. Let's use that word.
Sure.
And do you feel like that can be coached out of a player?
The timidness?
I try to use a nice word as I could use.
Yeah,
scared.
Scared, maybe a little lack of aggression. I mean, I think you can teach aggression in terms of how to use it, on the playing surface, on the field or the court. But I think you are who you are, and I think for me that was always a challenge. I mean, I was never the most aggressive person on the court. I was never going to be the one that would just rip the ball out of your hands. Now, I would hustle my tail off and I would give you 500%, every second of every game. But I didn't have that, that kind of that feistiness that some folks had.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of folks have that inbred. I think some of that is by nature of how you're raised, by nature of the demographics of the society that you live in. I think a lot of folks that played ball had to be tough to survive. I mean, they're coming from families and neighborhoods where if you weren't tough, you didn't survive that neighborhood, so to speak. And so I think, there are all walks of life in college basketball and in any kind of sport. And again, at any level. And I think the idea is to get a good mix because you learn from each other. So I learned from the students that, grew up in East Chicago and saw some things that never in my life did I see growing up.
Yeah.
Growing up in Yuma, Arizona. And I think you learn from them and they learn from you as well. I mean, they learn a different perspective and learning about other folks' cultures and upbringings. And I think that's as invaluable in life as you can possibly get.
I agree. That goes back to the same, just taking advantage of what's around you and
absolutely
and using it because it is. I feel that it's an energy. It's an energy that people call it momentum. And I feel like you get courage or false courage in your role. Like you got an enforcer, that person that's gonna come in there and nobody's coming to get any layups. Okay. Because and they know that person's down there. So now that brings confidence in playing defense on the perimeter, on the outside, because you're like, man, if you get past me, you're still not gonna go all the way so I can gamble here. And then using everybody's great qualities and putting it together, that's the mastermind part of the coach, and he has to find a way to get it out of them. And a lot of coaches, I feel like they can work on that part of the game a little more, Again, to go back to why we having this dialogue is because I want to be a better coach. I want to be a better people's person and getting the best out of the athlete. And you got to have perspective. And even when you were talking about genetics, or not genetics, but circumstances, it do make you tough. It do make you. It makes you not afraid to stick your head in there because you didn't do some things at home.
Sure.
I can even remember touching the iron for the first time. I was like, it's hot. It's like,
Yeah.
Well, y'all can't see my hand, but I'm like timid to touch it, and then you actually touch it. And then once you touch, you like, oh, this go quick. You get your hand off of it to check the iron. And some kids look at irons, I'm never doing that.
Yep.
Never, and just they will never touch it. And that fear,
no question,
because that helps them be a better person even when they offer there. Because I use sports to develop character. You want people to have courage and just be brave, to just take your shot, just take
As
shots.
You should.
Yeah.
It's just as equally important to teach empathy and kindness and sportsmanship. So there may be, a player on that surface that is the toughest kid out there. But when he falls down or she falls down, I would give as much kudos to the tough kid as the kid who extends his arm to help that guy up, right? And you don't see that as much anymore. And I think it is important for us to teach young people all aspects. You could be a little bit tougher like that guy. You could be a little more empathetic, a little more kind than that woman. So I think, there's a definite balance there, and that everybody can learn from everybody in that aspect.
Oh yes, man, and I learned from my son. You said that, and I want to tell a story to the podcast. Shout out to Montana Davis, my little boy. He was in a Spartan race this weekend, Concord, North Carolina. And the Spartan race is just where the kids, and it was kids division. I don't know. I think they like 13 and under, maybe. Well, the kids go around. It's like a mile course, and it's like mud, a wall, and they have to climb the wall, and they have to crawl under stuff, obstacles. At the end of the race, it's coming down to him and one girl, right? They're running. It's a mud. It's like you had to go over the rope, and then it was a mud ditch. They went into the mud, and I guess you grabbed the rope. The little girl got stuck under the rope. He's out of the mud. He goes back.
Attaboy.
He helps her out, and then he still wins the race.
Good for him.
I'm glad he won the race.
So,
I'm just messing.
You're glad he won the race, right? I'm just messing. But you also, somebody has taught him that.
Yeah,
right?
Man.
Someone has taught him that. Someone has taught him that you go back for your teammate, that you go back for, even if they're not on your team, right?
Yeah, that was just like just doing the right thing, and it's just, I related it to that story, man. That was some good stuff. Yeah, and we can move on. Ask you some more questions.
We can talk about kids for the next hour.
Yeah. I got it. We have to, and that's why same what I told you about. I asked you about your kids, because they shape our lives and our perspective. Always, the young men that I mentor, I'll tell them in a heartbeat. Having my son changed my life. Because I allowed it, first you taking responsibility.
Sure.
You're here. I was 22 years old, and it was like, hey, man, you can look at situations different, because actually when I found out I was going to have a son, I also tore my ACL. So it was no more football, and it was that. And then it's just a mindset I even have to this day. And then I feel like, stuff happens to everybody.
Sure.
And then it's about, again, like this podcast, looking at the positive. Sure. And I know we talked about looking at the positive and the negative. You have to take that adversity and say, hey, man, this is God, the universe, however you want to describe it, telling you to do something, and you just got to just breathe and just look around. It took a long time to get there, too. And then just being okay with just finding a new purpose, because with me, I tore the ACL, said, I'm still going to go. I didn't just give up. Went back, worked out. A year later, tore it again. And I was working out before the CFL workout. I had a pretty good chance of going. And I don't spend time talking about that story. It is one of those where adversity to your advantage.
Yeah, the challenge will always, how you handle the challenge will always teach you one way or the other, right? It'll either teach you how things could be handled well, or how things can be handled not as well. And you can learn from that either way. Either
way, man. Either way. Well, Coach, thank you for that. Thank you for that piece right there. How do you feel coming now? And when you were coaching in the college realms, was it a big influence of social media?
There wasn't as much. I mean, it was kind of getting there. I mean, I've been out of coaching for, goodness, close to 10 years now. And it wasn't as prevalent, obviously, as it is now. But it certainly was something that we addressed in our department when I was the athletic director. And I think we had mandatory social media trainings for all 300 student athletes that I, kind of was the athletic director over. And there was never a question. I mean, you were going, and practice wasn't an excuse, and nothing. I mean, there was no excuse; it was mandatory. And we recorded it for those that missed it, so that they could watch it if there was some dire reason that they missed. But we had an outside entity come in from the campus that was not an athlete, but that was certainly well versed in social media and communications. And they used outstanding examples of other athletes, both positively and negatively in social media, and how you can essentially market yourself in social media positively to help you get that next scholarship or that next job or that next step up. Because for us at the community college level, all of our students, we're trying to go to the next level, to the 4-year levels, convenience, right? So, and then they could also show the negative impacts of social media all the way down to the high school level, where, college coaches, it's an investment. And if you're trying to get that college scholarship, it's almost like buying a house or buying a car for coaches. You're going to research. You're going to see how that car ticks. Yeah, how does that car tick? How much gas do I have to feed it? How much time and energy do I have to put into it? How much maintenance?
Is it reliable? Is it a reliable brand?
Is it something that,
has
it's an
this car?
investment. So they're going to research those social media pages, and if they see the Snapchat and the Instagram of the the beer bongs and the, I call it quarters because, back in the day that's what they played, and beer, now it's beer pong, or whether it's pot or whatever influences that students are doing. If they're on social media, that's out there, and somebody will see it at some point, and it could potentially impact your future.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with it. I agree. But using it as a positive spin, man, I really think that social media holds a lot of people. It holds accountability.
Sure.
For what your word is. It's a good and a bad. And if you're looking at it for the good, it's like, okay, I had this goal. I said it here. Let me be a man of my word and let me finish that goal. But I had a conversation with somebody about this as well too, about having the freedom to change your mind. That's the part about it that's not okay, because you'll say some things and you'll put it out there, and then the next day you'll feel differently. It's not always good to put your emotions out there.
Not always.
And we have to, not always. So sometimes you need to let things play out. You need to think. You need to stop and not let everything control you.
Right.
And that's a part of just knowing yourself and
Sure.
and having.
Processing, I call that processing.
There it is, processing. That's the exact word that we need. And processing is difficult with social media.
Sure. Yeah, I've encouraged folks that I've worked with, colleagues that I've worked with. I've encouraged relatives. I've encouraged students that when you're passionate about something in a manner that you feel like you need to express it to another person, especially, that you sit on it overnight. So sit on it, think about it, cool down a little bit, let your emotions settle, and then write that email, or then make that posting, or then send that text. But prior to that, be aware of where you are emotionally. Process.
Yeah, and process, and there's so much power in. And I don't know if I said it on this actual podcast already, or if we were just talking about manifestations. And I've even practiced it with mine. Just obviously, I only want to post positive things. The PAVEDOT, the acronym for PAVEDOT stands for Positive Activity Vibrating Externally, Developing Opportunities Together. But the P stands for positivity, right? So if you're putting out, and the Facebook will ask you, Facebook says, "What's on your mind?" And you putting out something negative, then even if you just go back and look at it, you putting it back, you putting that thought right back in your mind. The person might have dumped you. You put it out there, and now you're just sitting on it. You know what I mean? And my mom, she's not living in Wilmington, so she's far away. So she's checking into my stuff all the time, right? And I do keep a positive approach because my mom's looking. I use stuff like that. It's like I don't want to get on there just on a whole bunch of curse words because I don't really do it in front of her. Just keeping respect. You got to have those barriers and people that you do respect. And some of this younger generation too, they just don't respect enough people.
Sure.
So the lack of respect is like I can just do whatever.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, and they haven't had the experiences that we've had, right? So even for us, I mean, you're talking about trying to set an example or an image that would be that would hold you accountable with your mom, right? How many of us do that? I mean, there's somebody in our lives that we are accountable to. And as grown-ups now, we're not accountable to coaches. We're not playing for coaches anymore. There aren't teachers. We've got our degrees. We've moved on. We've got our professions. But what about that future employer? What about that child that that eventually will look up to you? Or what about that other person that is just trying to see what kind of person you are before they friend you, or before they it's always about what other folks, what kind of impression other folks are going to get of you, and what kind of person do you want to be?
Yeah.
Do you want to be the person of this impression that you posted, or do you want to be the person of this impression? And who do you want to be for your mom? Who do you want to be for your kids? And what kind of example do you want to set?
The legacy. Yeah, you gotta leave a nice one. Um, any suggestions that you will have for any coach that's aspiring to be the next Roy Williams,
Oh my
the
goodness.
college coach? It's everybody is chasing dreams. Coach, I have recreation coaches with big dreams,
Sure.
and I never shoot it down. Maybe they can hear your words and they can get on the path of,
Right.
hey man, I got to do this.
Well, I think, you have to be willing to go anywhere, and you have to be willing to do anything to start out in coaching.
Go anywhere.
You have to
Say
go
that one
anywhere.
more time. You can't just stay at home.
I mean, I moved from Arizona to West Virginia.
Get out your comfort zone.
I learned some things living on the East Coast for 6 years that I'd been in Arizona my whole life. And so it was extremely valuable for me in life to see other cultures and learn other things. But I had to go to West Virginia to get my first 4-year coaching job. And I had to be a graduate student. That's how I got paid. They paid for grad school. They gave me $200 a month. So essentially, I paid the university to coach for them because I took out student loans and paid them to go to school so that I could get into coaching.
I was going to ask you about the graduate. How many required hours did you have to put in?
Oh, there's no clock.
Okay, there it is.
There's no clock.
That's free labor right there.
Head coach says you're going 3 hours away to Columbus tonight to go watch a basketball game. And then the next day you have class until 9 o'clock at night, and then the next day you have practice until 10 o'clock at night. I mean, there are no hours. And then you're in that office first thing the next morning, and you're doing recruiting letters, and you're doing all the administrative duties. You want to get into coaching, you have to volunteer your time. You have to get in front of a coach and say, I'll do whatever. I'll hand out water bottles on the sideline. I'll be a manager. Because you don't step in as Roy Williams or,
Sean McVay.
Right?
I don't know. I'll use Sean McVay's name because he's the youngest NFL coach. Well, one of, I don't know. I haven't Googled that. Google that stat. I don't want to blurt out stuff. But Sean McVay, you can be in the coaching background and you just get an NFL gig,
Right.
But I said that doesn't happen all the time. Most of the time, it's going to take a process.
It's going to take a process, and it's often who you know. So you've got to get out and network.
And you got to know people.
You got to know people. For me, back in the day, it was always about you had to go to the Final Four and talk to people and go to clinics and put your face out there and go to meet high school coaches and meet. You just have to get out there.
And taking knowledge from other coaches and going to those clinics are big. I remember coaching in the high school level, and we went to like App and other colleges and got a lot of information on different schemes. I was more on the football aspect. And you hearing their philosophies, their lingos, and you can pick up stuff too from those networking events. That's really good.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even the big coaches do that. I mean, if anybody watched March Madness women's basketball, the Missouri State coach, who's now kind of in the mix for the Tennessee job, the women's basketball Tennessee job, her name's out there for the Tennessee job. They spoke on the broadcast for the games that she went to UConn in the position she's in now and learned from him for a week, and then she went back with her staff. And so nobody is better than anybody else. And
you should always be you should always be a student of the game.
I'll tell you what, Pat Summitt used to say, she who steals the best plays wins.
I know that's right.
Says the woman who recruited some of the best athletes ever, right? So there's definitely a combination there. But you have to get out there, you gotta learn, and you gotta see folks,
Yeah, you do. Well, what about today? Like, how are you scratching that itch of the competitiveness? It doesn't go anywhere. I feel that way, but if it does, you can tell me. But how are you How are you getting by today when you're talking about competing and developing people and the passion for that?
I'll tell you that, a lot of people that know me will tell you that I'm so competitive and that I hate to
It
lose.
doesn't go
And,
anywhere.
whether it be a card game or, playing with my kids sometimes, I'm probably too competitive. It's toned down a lot. It truly has toned down a lot. And I think having kids has a big part to do with that. And, my focus has changed. For me, well, it's changed, but it hasn't. I mean, it's not as a do or die win for me. It's still about touching lives, right? And
Right.
so for me, if I am working with a fifth grader and we're working on a math problem, and this guy, God bless him, he wants to learn, he just doesn't get it. But the second that light bulb goes off is equivalent to me now as a win was 15, 20 years ago.
Got it, Coach.
So
That you said it. You said it all right there. Getting through, and passing along information. Like if it's just 1+1, you gotta. It's a
Right.
process that has to happen there.
One life, if you can touch one life and give one student hope, whether it be in the classroom, on the court, just in life, if you pass on one smile during the day of somebody who's having an awful day and they think, oh my gosh, somebody just smiled at me, and their whole perspective changes, then you've done your job that day.
You did. Well, Coach, I appreciate your time. One of the most valuable things on this earth, I do believe, is time, and I appreciate you every minute you gave us right here and pass along information. And it's the give and go, push out positivity, give it right back. That's how we end it here on the PAVEDOT podcast. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you for the opportunity. You're doing good stuff.